Chapter 7. The Hollow Price. The gas station didn't even have a name, just a sun-faded sign that read food and ice beneath a flickering open that looked like it hadn't changed its mind in years. Tim leaned against the pump, staring at the numbers as the last few dollars drained from his account. $12.47. That was it. Gas, a sandwich, and coffee if the clerk felt generous. Mist pressed her face against the passenger window, her tail flicking once. She looked as worn as he felt. Guess we're not getting that room with HBO tonight, he muttered, tightening the gas cap. The bell over the door jingled as he stepped inside. The place smelled like burnt coffee, sunscreen, and regret. A rotating rack of postcards squeaked beside a cooler that buzzed louder than it cooled. Tim handed over a 10 and a few crumpled ones for a half-wrapped tuna sandwich and a bottle of water. Rough day? The clerk asked without looking up. Tim glanced at the bulletin board beside the exit. Lost dogs, church flyers, a poster yellowed with age, then something newer. Handwritten. Missing, Miles R., 15YO, last seen near Red Ridge Trail, $5,000 reward, no questions. There was a number, no sheriff's seal, no official stamp, just black Sharpie and desperation. Tim stared at it longer than he meant to. You local? The clerk asked. No, Tim said. Just passing through. He tore down the flyer anyway. The road out to the ranch was cracked and half reclaimed by dust. His tires kicked up a trail behind him like smoke from a fuse. Linda Rodriguez answered the door with a shotgun in her left hand and a hollow look in her eyes. You the one who called? Tim nodded, holding up the flyer. I don't do this full time, but I've found people. I can look. She studied him, the way his jacket didn't quite fit, the thinness in his face, the fatigue buried behind his eyes. You're not law, she said. No. Good. Come in. The house was quiet, no TV, no family photos, just dust in the corners and the hum of the fridge. She handed him a printout, a picture of a boy, dark-haired, lanky, smiling with something clenched behind his teeth. Miles. He went hiking 2 nights ago, said he was going to take pictures of the canyon trail. He's never gone longer than a few hours. He didn't come back. Tim scanned the photo, then looked around. Sheriff? Thinks he ran off. Says it's drugs or a tantrum, but Miles wasn't like that. Tim pointed to the necklace she wore, rawhide cord, with a charm made of bone and silver. Old? She hesitated. Apache. My dad made it. Said it wards off bad talk. Spirits that don't speak, just hunger. You think this is more than a runaway? She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to a drawer and pulled something out. A long hunting knife, worn but clean, its edge polished to a silver gleam. My father used this in '88 when the goats started turning up inside out. Whatever took them, he hurt it with this. Tim took it gently, holding the weight. I'll find him, he said. She nodded, voice low. Then you better come back with one less body. Tim sat on the edge of the motel bed, disassembling the revolver slowly, cleaning each piece like it was a prayer. The motel room's only light was the one over the mirror, flickering in a rhythm that made Mist's ears twitch every few seconds. The gun wasn't pretty. Worn, pitted near the hammer, but the cylinder spun clean. 5 rounds loaded, 1 empty chamber. He didn't like carrying it, but he liked not having it even less. He spoke out loud, partly to himself. First, a woman in red, then a mirror that screamed, now a damn cannibal spirit. Mist didn't move, her stare held on him like she expected him to keep talking. You think I'm losing it? A soft blink. He looked around the motel room like he expected someone to answer. The wallpaper peeled near the vent. The air smelled faintly of mildew and something floral trying to cover it up, but not enough to hide the smell of the boots beside the door. His, caked with dust. Tim stood and opened the drawer in the bedside table. No Bible. Just a phone book with pages torn out and a single receipt tucked between them. A gas station. Last month. Miles's town. He sat back down and spread out what he had. Miles's drawings, the photo printout, the journal notes, and the symbols scratched into the back of one drawing. Antlers, circles, X marks in a pattern. Tim traced them with his finger. Not language. Hunting map. He left the room just after dusk. The air was thick and still. No wind, no bugs. Even the power lines overhead looked tired. The pawn shop on the edge of town was still open. He pushed the door open to the chime of an actual bell. Not a digital sound, just a little rusted thing that swung like it hadn't been touched in a decade. The man behind the counter didn't even look up, just muttered, cash only. Looking for a sidearm, Tim said, voice casual. Now the guy looked up, squinted. You look like a man who's never fired one in anger. Tim shrugged. I'd like the option. He walked out 15 minutes later with a second box of rounds, a worn leather holster, and a thin white cloth wrapped amulet the shopkeeper claimed was from a Lakota reservation priest. Won't stop bullets, the man said, but maybe something older. Tim pocketed it anyway. The trail looked normal. That was the first wrong thing. Sunlight hit the sand like gold poured through a cracked lens. Cacti cast long shadows like fingers across the dirt. Tim's boots crunched with every step, slow and measured. But the sound didn't echo. That was the second wrong thing. He paused near the split in the path. Checked the printed map Miles had drawn, rough lines, annotated marks like someone who didn't trust the official routes. Red Ridge was supposed to loop, but the kid had drawn an arrow veering off the trail with one word beside it: Whisper Path. Tim stepped off the path. His first sign was the heat. It didn't change. That was wrong. Should have gotten cooler in the shade. Instead, it felt heavier, like walking into a closed room full of other people's breath. He spotted movement, a shimmer between two rocks. Not a body, not a beast, just distortion like heat rising off blacktop. He turned slowly, one hand on his holster. Then he saw the bones, scattered in a fan shape around a flat stone, not fresh, picked clean. He crouched near them, found a necklace, cheap plastic beads, and a phone. It turned on, somehow. He clicked the gallery. Only one photo. Blurry. But it wasn't the blur that made him tighten his grip. It was the figure in the distance, long limbs bent backward, eyes wide apart, antlers rising from its skull like branches in smoke. Something moved just over his shoulder. He spun. Nothing there. Just heat. He walked on. The path narrowed, pressed between two red rock walls like a throat narrowing. He ran his fingers along one wall, felt something slick, sticky, not blood, not sap, some kind of residue. Then, faint and low, he heard breathing. Not his own. He froze, held it. The sound stopped. He stepped forward, and a rock tumbled from above, slamming just inches from his boot. Above him, claw marks. Recent. The hunt had already started. The entrance to the cave was easy to miss. It wasn't a gaping mouth, just a fold in the rock, half choked with dry brush and shadow. Tim crouched low, moving the thorns aside with the flat of his knife. Inside, the air shifted. Not colder, not musty, just still. The way hotel rooms feel the morning after someone dies in them, like sound didn't want to settle here. He stepped in sideways, shoulders brushing stone. His boots scraped sand and rock. Every movement echoed too sharp and too fast, like the cave couldn't hold on to the sounds, like it rejected them. Mist's absence hit him suddenly. The way she'd tried to wedge herself beneath the motel bed before he left. How her ears flattened when he packed his bag. She never liked to be alone, but she'd let him go without a sound. He paused. Unclipped the silver knife from his belt, kept the revolver in his other hand. Sweat crawled down his back in a thin thread. His breath fogged once, just once, then didn't return. 20 feet in, the cave widened into a shallow hollow. Bones littered the corners, animal mostly. But not all. A shoe, a wristwatch, a pair of sunglasses still folded, untouched by time but ringed in dust, and at the far end, a figure, hunched, small, wrapped in a dirt-smeared jacket too big for him. Miles, Tim called, voice low, steady. The figure flinched. Tim took a step forward. Miles Rodriguez? Your mom sent me. You're not alone. The boy looked up, slow, face pale, cracked lips, one eye swollen nearly shut. Skin tight like he'd stopped drinking 2 days ago. You're real? He whispered. Tim nodded. Very. Can you walk? The boy didn't answer, just blinked. I've got water, Tim said, crouching slowly, setting down his pack. You drink, then we move. Can't stay here. He unscrewed the bottle, held it to the kid's lips. Miles sipped like his throat barely remembered how. It's still out there, Miles said, breath sharp. I know. It's waiting. Tim nodded. Then we don't give it what it wants. He stood, scanned the cave again. Something was off. Not just the air, the shape, the walls, the acoustics. He spoke softly. I think this whole place was made to sound like something it's not. The boy looked up. Tim tapped the wall. Echoes don't bounce right, but if it mimics, sound could be a weapon. Miles flinched suddenly. Don't, he said. What? The boy's eyes widened. Behind you. Tim spun. Darkness stared back, but it wasn't empty. Something moved just inside the mouth of the tunnel. No breath, no footsteps, just the weight of being watched. He raised the revolver. The flashlight beam caught two pale antlers, rising like roots from a skull too long to be human. Flesh pulled thin, draped over bone, its eyes reflecting nothing but hunger. It didn't lunge, it just stood. Tim didn't fire, not yet. Instead, he grabbed Miles by the collar. Time to go. They moved fast, quiet, no running. Running would echo. Outside, the light had changed. Sun near setting, the rocks casting long red shadows. The wind had stopped, no birds, no insects, just them. And it. Tim turned to check behind, and the cave was already hidden again, shrouded in brush and shadow like it had never been real, covered in brush, as if it had never been there. Miles fell to his knees, shaking. Tim holstered the revolver and crouched beside him. "We're not done yet," he said, "but we're not dead either." Miles gripped his arm. "It won't stop." Tim stared out toward the fading path, the sun dipping low enough to turn the canyon black. "No," he said quietly, "but neither will I." They didn't go back the way they came. Tim guided Miles through a shallow incline that curved north out toward a ravine marked in the kid's map. The rocks underfoot were soft, dry, too brittle. Every crunch sounded like bone. Miles limped beside him, leaning heavy but refusing to be carried. There was something quiet in him, not just fear, like something had been peeled back and left exposed. "Why didn't it kill you?" Tim asked without looking over. Miles swallowed. "It wanted me to forget." Tim glanced down. "Forget what?" "My name, where I was from, my mom." He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "It whispered things. Every time I tried to sleep, said no one was coming, said I was already part of it." Tim's jaw locked. He crouched in front of the boy, flashlight angled under his chin. "Did it feed you anything?" he asked quietly. "Meat? Anything? Weird?" Miles's face twisted. "It left things, bones I didn't eat, I swear." Tim didn't move. "Did you touch it? Taste it? Even once?" Miles shook his head, frantic. "No, I was hungry. I thought about it, but I didn't. I swear." Tim let out a slow breath, reached down, unclipped the silver knife from his belt. Miles flinched. Tim didn't hesitate. He pulled the boy's arm forward and pressed the flat of the silver blade lightly against his skin, just enough to make contact. Miles didn't scream, didn't burn, just stared at the metal, breathing fast. Tim held it there 5 seconds. 10. Then he nodded, sheathed it. "You're still you." Miles let out a breath that turned into a sob he tried to swallow. Tim stood. "Come on. If it wanted to turn you, it failed. But it's still out there, and I'm done letting it hunt." His hand hovered near the revolver. The weight of the silver knife dug into his side like a promise. Ahead, the canyon narrowed again, a bottleneck of red rock rising like broken teeth, perfect choke point, and something was already there, perched in the shadows, watching. The Wendigo moved like it was remembering how. Not smooth, not clumsy, just wrong. A shape designed for things humans never needed to do. It stretched one long leg down from the rock face, train up, its joints bending too far, too slow. Antlers scraped the canyon wall. Then it dropped. Not loud, just final. Tim stepped forward, shoving Miles behind a low ridge. "You don't speak, do you?" he said to the thing. "Just steal voices. Just wait." The thing's mouth unhinged. No lips, no tongue. Just black. Just hunger. It opened its jaw wider than it should, and the voice that came out was Tim's. "You left her. You left all of them. You like watching them fall apart." Tim's hand shook, but he kept his voice steady. "I know what you are now." The Wendigo took a step forward, limbs dragging, eyes black as rot. "I know how to end you." He drew the silver knife, raised the revolver in the other hand. When it lunged, he moved. Not fast, not wild, just right. The way you dodge something you've already seen in a dream. The first shot rang out and hit the rock behind it. The second clipped its shoulder, barely slowed it. But the third, center chest, it screamed. Not pain. Rage. The kind of scream that sucked air in, not out. A howl that didn't leave the throat but burrowed back inside. Tim rolled aside as it came down, claws slicing through the air where his neck had been. He jabbed with the knife, caught the edge of its ribs. It flinched. He ducked beneath a swing and pulled the lighter from his pocket. The gasoline, he'd poured it hours ago, marking the canyon's narrowest bend, just in case. He stepped into position, lit the flame, and threw. The trail lit fast, a wall of fire cutting between him and the creature. The Wendigo stopped, then screamed, this time real. It staggered backwards, smoke curling from its skin like burnt paper. It tried to climb, slipped, fell. Tim jumped the flame line and fired again, one shot into its skull. The thing thrashed. He fired a second time, then plunged the knife into its neck where bone met sinew. The Wendigo went still. Ash drifted upward, carried on a wind that hadn't been there a moment ago. Tim stepped back. The thing, whatever it had been, no longer had a shape, just bones and dust. They made it back to the trailhead just after dawn. The rocks looked different in the light, less like teeth, more like stones. Normal. Harmless. But the scorched patch of earth near the ravine still smoked faintly as there had burned more than just wood and skin. Tim's legs ached. His jacket was torn. It was torn at the shoulder, and his ribs were bruised where the thing had thrown him. But they were alive. Miles hadn't spoken in over an hour. He walked without looking up, his eyes half shut, clutching the empty Canton Lika Lefaline. When the road came into, he collapsed in the dirt and sobbed silent, shaking sobs like someone remembering how to feel. Tim didn't say anything. He just let him cry. Back at the ranch, Linda dropped the coffee mug when she saw her son limp up the drive. Didn't scream, didn't speak, just ran. Fell to her knees in the dirt, held him like she'd never let go. Miles didn't move. But he dinkly if en verf op his hidden life. He had bassed wiefetzend. Ik schiesken. Ishten. He did that and jidate. And debated on to she did vim better than no in outgoed. Yethe David op itine eden obeyed batten liposi the survivor neons eliflands arpned. You'll need this again, she said, and then, as he turned to leave, she held out one more item, a small bone amulet, darkened with age, strung with old twine and burnt sage. My father used to wear it when he hunted. Said it keeps things away that whisper your name. Might be nothing, but it might not. Tim took it gently, held it like something living. Tell him he's strong, Tim said, nodding toward the back room. He knows, she said, but her voice cracked. Back at the motel, Mist leapt into his lap before he even sat down. She sniffed the air, then curled into his coat like she needed to make sure it was still him. Tim leaned back, revolver unloaded, knife cleaned and wrapped in cloth. He opened his journal. Case 7. Likely Wendigo, or regional variant. Entity. Carnivorous mimic, nonverbal, territorial. Tactics. Lures with silence and memory erosion. Weakness, silver, fire. Status, destroyed. Notes, hostile, high physical threat. Survivor, Miles R., recovering, new artifact, bone amulet, unknown effectiveness. He closed the book. The motel TV buzzed softly in the background, an old movie Tim half recognized, something with fog and cheap monster effects. He chuckled. They never get it right. Mist purred. Outside, the sky turned gray with the first signs of rain. He slid the journal into his bag, clipped the amulet to his belt loop, and whispered to no one. One down. Again, but I still don't know what I'm counting toward. He poured half a bottle of gasoline into a spare Nalgene, sealing it tight, just in case fire worked better than bullets. Some part of him felt emptier now. Not just tired, hollow, like he'd paid something he couldn't get back.